So you can see my screen as well, right? Okay. So this is just as you guys would have noticed that we are actually coming up with Xenett 2.0 version on March 21st. So this is our last training session on this platform because a lot of new modules will be introduced, a lot of new features will be introduced, right? I'm going to touch base on some of those new stuff later on this call. But overall, the concept will remain same, the workflow will remain same as such, right? So I think we will also have a separate session just to educate you guys that how you guys are doing right now versus what's gonna change so that it doesn't come as like also like surprise altogether, right? So many of you guys are pro users already, so you might find a lot of basic stuff, but I just want to make sure if at all there are new people on this call and they want to learn everything, then I would like to make sure that I include the entire workflow. So just bear with me, all right? Uh, just a quick introduction. um, Myself, I'm Hardik. I'm one of the founder at Xenett. I'm an accountant with about decade of experience working in this industry since long, and review was something that I kind of did like half of my career, right? And one of the thing I personally wasn't liking is it's the same thing, checking same thing every month, and I kind of was trying to figure out a better way to do that, and we kind of ended up creating this platform that allows to automatically detect errors on the go. All right. So as you can see on my screen, this is a dashboard where you can see list of all clients. Adding clients is super easy. Just click on add client file, connect your QuickBooks N0, and that's it. It is all you're gonna need, right? Connecting QuickBooks N0 is pretty straightforward. It is just like any other app that you might be using it, right? Because that is something the process remains same because it's driven by QuickBooks N0. Once the client is added, you're going to click on that client name and then you will be deep diving into that client. So right now I just clicked on the next unicorn, which is what the client we are going to use it for this training purpose. Once you are into this client, the very first point step rather will be to decide the review period here, right? Now in this case, you can select 1 month or you can select multiple months as well. What I mean by that is if at all you want to do monthly review, you can do that, quarterly review, annual review, especially now since the year has 2022 has been ended, you can select the whole year. And then when you click on run, it's gonna load the entire data for 2022, right? For now, I'm just going to select July to September, click on run, and then this whole panel on left that you can see will be updated accordingly. Now this indicates different review points that require attention. All right, so one by one, like we can go through and we can just kind of quickly fix them, right? So the whole concept, as you would have figured, is that rather than kind of going and checking everything, what we are trying to do here is that we are kind of filtering the most obvious things that require attention so that we can easily focus on that and easily fix it. All right. Once you've selected this review period, the very next step that will have to happen is start the review process, because this is how we are telling system that, hey, we are about to start the review for this particular period. In this case, because the review has already been started, that is why you see a review option here. Otherwise, you would see a start review. Okay. Now, uncategorized entries. Let's say my goal here would be to reclassify all these transactions to appropriate accounts. Okay. So auto spot, for example, I want to see, first of all, I want to see if at all there are any transactions for this vendor in the past. I want to see it, how it's been coded, and accordingly, I might decide if I want to put it to the same account, right? So finding the transactions for any vendor, it's super easy. Simply do a right click, say smart search. It will immediately pull up all the transactions for that vendor on the screen. I can see it was coded to automobile in the past. I mean, it's pretty simple. I'm going to click on it here, change it to automobile, and it will be immediately updated back to the QuickBooks file, right? So that's super handy. And you can close it and that's it. Or you can also change it here and you can also do that. OK, so it's like editing transaction is just available on a click, right? You can click on the account name and you can simply change it. So that's one way. Second thing is that let's say this Amazon.com transaction. Now, in this case, let's say one situation is I already know that these are all office supplies. So I want to select them all. And when I select them all, there's a panel coming up from the top that allows me to reclassify all the selected transactions in the bulk, which is pretty straightforward. I'm going to say that, hey, I want to reclassify all these transactions to office supplies. That's it, and apply. Once I do that, all the selected transactions will be reclassified accordingly. OK, so that's also super handy. Now, if at all you want to also assign the class or location simultaneously, you can also do that. You don't have to do one by one, right? All of those bulk changes can happen at the same time. OK, so this is how you can quickly bulk reclassify. Now, another situation is that let's say I don't know what these transactions are for, and I want to ask my client about this, right? So in this case, we also have a client portal where you can easily ask all these questions to your client, right? Rather than downloading the Excel spreadsheet or exporting transactions, put them into email or Google Sheet and then sending it to client every now and then. Uh, what we have done is that we have created a client portal where you can simply publish it from here, right? So the way it works here is that in this case, I selected these transactions. I'm gonna click on ask, and there are some template questions, right? Let's say for these transactions, I want to find out, hey, what are these transactions for? These are the template questions here that you can also create your own and you can also edit them. Once you do that, just simply click on ask and that's it. All those questions will then be published to the client. OK, so now you might ask that, hey, how are my clients notified? Like, how would my client know if at all I have asked them any questions, right? So first of all, the way it's going to work is that you'll have to enable the client portal. All right. So when you click on this menu, click on client setting, you will have to enable, because by default we don't enable it because it's not something that everyone would want to do that. So if at all you want to invite your client to access this portal, you have to enable this and you have to invite your client here, right? Once you invite your client will receive an invitation email that, hey, you have been invited by this accounting firm. And by the way, you can also modify that email as per your convenience. Like if at all you want to change the text and all of those stuff, you can also do that. OK, so when the very first time client is invited to access to portal, they will be asked to set up 6 digits pin. OK, it's a one-time pin that they have to set and they have to remember, that's it, right? So what's going to happen here is that once client has set up the pin, uh, um, they will have a separate URL, right? So let me just also kind of show you how exactly that's gonna look like. OK, so they will not have to literally type in the email address. All they will have to type in is the 6 digits pin. That's it. We didn't want to create an experience like username and password kind of thing. So what's going to happen is that whenever they click on a button called provide feedback, right, all they have to do is just kind of type in the pin and that's it. It's more like a mobile passcode, right? So for now, because I removed that email address, I'm just gonna show you what your client's gonna see. So once client logs in, this is what they're gonna see. They will not really find out what you are saying in Xenett. All they're gonna look at is the list of all the questions and they can start responding. OK, so for example, these are all the different questions. Like it says, hey, what is this transaction for? Right, there is one for Amazon. So let's say if I was a client, I would do this. I do have an option to change the account, office supplies, and then at the same time I can also kind of write a comment here if I like. If I want to attach any document, I can also do that. And anytime if client uploads any document to a transaction, it automatically gets attached to a transaction in QuickBooks, right? You don't have to separately download it and you don't have to separately upload it. All those documents will automatically be attached to the transaction. Okay. Now in this case, let's say I, as a client, I give you, I mean, I change it like, hey, this is office supplies. I'm gonna resolve it. If at all I want to leave some comments like, hey, please send me a receipt for it or whatever, I can start responding it. This is telephone, for example, right? And then send and close. So for client, it's pretty easy because they can immediately um like submit the response as they find the answer. They don't have to hold up the things because we have seen that at times if client doesn't have answer to, let's say, 5-10 questions, they might hold up the whole thing just because they want to kind of spare some time finding all the answers. So in this case, as they find the answer, they start responding it and it will be quickly submitted. On accountant side, there is a module here on the top that says client questions, which is where you can see to review. All the responses submitted by client will show up here under to review. Okay. And anytime client gives you a suggestion, uh, this is how it's gonna show up. So important thing to be noted here is that whenever client makes any changes to account or class or location, it does not directly sync to the QuickBooks file. It's gonna show up here because we understand that clients are not accountant, and the last thing that we want is that they just start screwing up things, right? So what's going to happen is here is that if you like the suggestion by client, you're going to click on it and then it will accept the change, right? If you don't like the suggestion and if you want to change some other account, just simply cancel it and you can select any other account and you can just change it. So that way it's pretty handy. Like in this case, if at all, as I mentioned, if client had attached any document, that's it. Like you don't have to separately download and upload it to the transaction. It's already attached to the transaction, right? So that way client portal, I would say, facilitates the whole communication part where you don't have to change. By the way, if you are using client portal, you will no longer need to chase your client because you can also set the automatic reminder. So when you go to menu, click on client setting on client portal, you can actually set to send them reminders, right? You can say that, hey, I want to remind my client every Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, however you like, and your clients will receive a reminder. Okay, you can also set up the time accordingly, so that way it's pretty handy, right? So that is also like we actually launched client portal in somewhere in August, and yeah, there are some new features also coming up in this March release, so we'll definitely give you guys update about that. All right, now what's going to happen is that one by one, as we move forward, now imagine we kind of reclassified all these transactions to appropriate accounts here, right? Let's say all of them are now resolved and it disappeared, right? You're gonna do a sign off here. So when you do a sign off, that means you're telling Xenett that this particular review point has been reviewed by this user on this time, right? So that way, like this progress bar, as you can see here, 24% will keep increasing for every sign off that you do. And eventually, once you've done all your sign off, this percentage bar will show 100%. And that's what it means that, hey, you kind of did the whole review. Now, one by one, we're gonna go through like, hey, this is entry posted to parent account. You can simply like, I'm pretty sure you guys must be familiar that what it is. If at all you need any help in understanding any of these review points, there's an info icon here which will give you a brief description. And if that is still not enough, there's a whole detailed article written. So when you click on learn more, we do have the whole thing written here, right? That explains that, hey, what it is, uh, and like what kind of configuration is involved along with the video tutorials, right? So that way That's going to be super handy. All right, so that's that. I kind of quickly saw the bulk category, the question in the chat. So right now you cannot bulk categorize the sales tax codes. It's already on our roadmap, and we are definitely going to address this bulk action for sales tax after March, because we have actually in fact received this request from some of our other customers as well. So right now you cannot do it. Okay. Um, so Mariko, just to also quickly cover your questions, your clients see all the questions, right? Whether you have asked, your staff has asked, whoever. For client, whoever has created the questions, they're gonna see them. Okay. All right. So now I'm not gonna spend so much of time explaining all of those individual category, but what I want to touch base on the whole kind of workflow and some of the common features. So each of these review points has its own configuration that can be customized. So for example, I'm into entry posted to parent accounts. And if at all I want to, let's say, change some sort of configuration, I can come here and I can change it here as well. Okay, so that way it's pretty handy. If at all you don't want any of these review points to show up here, you can also change it. Click on menu, click on configure, and you can also enable and disable those review points as well. Okay, so that's that. Then like some of the common features that you're gonna find playing around with the tables is pretty easy. If you want to change column sequence here and there, if you want to enable, disable more columns, right? It's pretty handy. You can do that. Right now it's group by account, group by name. If you want to kind of play around with that, you can do that. So that way, like the entire thing is super handy. You can export it into Excel. All of those stuff can easily be done. Okay. This is a quite important thing as well, which is a save search views, which is what I recommend all of our customers to use it, because it's pretty powerful. When you click on add, you got various parameters to choose from, and you can create your own custom review points, right? So just to give you an example, I created some review points like, hey, show me let's say I wanted to make sure I need to have a receipt or document for every single fixed asset purchase. So I created this view that, hey, these are all those transactions that don't have an attachment. So anytime I see any transactions, I'm gonna select them all and I'm gonna quickly ask, and I'm gonna say, hey, send me receipt for it and ask. That's it. So that's super handy, right? Uh, that way I don't like I kind of can make sure, so whenever client uploads document, it directly gets attached to this. Likewise, I created one that says, hey, show me transactions in fixed assets that are less than certain amount, because I don't want to capitalize them. So things like this that you can kind of so this is pretty helpful. It's a one-time thing, but once you've created it, it becomes part of your workflow. So I can quickly address a couple of questions in the chat. So can client respond to questions on their mobile device? Jim, so we don't have a mobile app right now, but the one that are going to be available in March, which is more like a mobile responsive. So imagine like let's say an email is sent to client, they open it on mobile. As soon as they click on provide feedback, it will have the same experience as mobile. It's just that it's not going to open on the mobile app. It's going to open on a mobile web browser, right? So it's going to be a mobile compatible where they can easily respond it, right? Um, do client comments to transaction attach in the, yes, that is right now it's not happen automatically, but what's going to happen is that let's say wherever your client has given you comment, right now we do have it like an option. It says add to description, right? So as long as you do that, the comment will then be updated into your description, right? That's how it is right now. We are thinking to consider whether we want to automatically put it to description, but imagine if there's a conversation, it might just get messy because there might be too many comments. So we just kept it on demand for now. Okay. Um, so may right now, if at all you're creating those review points, it just stays for that particular client only. It's because each client has got different accounts, different vendor names, and all of those things. So right now it just stays within that client. However, which I generally tell to all my customers is that if at all you want us to do that, like if you tell us that, hey, I want these 5 or 10 review points to be applied to all my clients, we can certainly do that for you, right? So at least that way you will not have to do it for all your clients. Just tell us once and we can take care of that. Okay, so that's that. So this is kind of pretty straightforward in a way in terms of the workflow. As I mentioned, eventually, as soon as you sign off, the review points turns into green, right? Eventually, once all of those review points turns into green, which means you guys kind of reach 200%, and then you guys can do end review, right? So that way you can kind of do that. I'm also going to touch base on a couple of things here, which is a help center, which is pretty robust. There are various resources available. If at all you want to search something, there's a help center. We do have a documentation for every single feature that we have. So if at all you want to search by your own, we can do that. There's this, you can also reach out to our support, which is like we are almost 25, I mean 24 by 7. This is something we don't want to compromise at all. So I can tell you, if at all you're trying to reach out to us, you'll kind of get a pretty faster response. So that's also a way where you can reach out to us. There are different links here. If you want to schedule a call, just schedule it from here, submit a feature request, right? We also look at that. There's an announcement every time we kind of bring something new, it's going to show up here. So all of those review points, I mean, all of those features that you might just want to consider that. We do have a new feature, Zap mode. I would not say new, it's recent. So this is something we actually did a phase one, where all we are now trying to do is that we want to start giving you guys suggestions based on our like backend learning, right? So all we are trying to do here is that anytime if we see that, hey, most times you put this bank corp transactions to dues and subscription, but in this case you put it to auto loan, we're going to start giving you suggestions, right? So you can quickly fix those transactions on the go, right? So let's say if at all you put Uber transactions to meals instead of travel, things like this, we're gonna give you guys this kind of suggestions so that you can quickly fix it. So it's more like whether you want to accept or dismiss it, right? I'm gonna say accept. So our goal is that rather than you figuring out that, hey, first of all, you have to figure out that there's a problem. And then you have to figure out, hey, what should be the right account? So all of those suggestions, we are actually going to give you guys ahead of time. So you don't have to spend time for that. So we already did phase one, but again, we're going to touch base on providing more and more suggestions moving forward, right? So that way it's going to be pretty handy. So this is something you can also, we call it Zap, right? Where you can quickly fix things without literally going into every single transactions. Okay. So that's that. I think that summarizes the workflow, that summarizes our key features. Now I'm also gonna touch base on some of the new stuff that we are coming up with. So, and again, whatever new stuff that we are coming up with is all the feedback that we have received from our customers, right? So see, so far, if you look at our value proposition, I mean, it's more like a speed mode, which is just specifically focusing on finding the abnormal points, allowing you guys to fix it. And then at the same time, if at all you want to ask something to your client, then you can ask it. It's limited. It's like one of the functions that you can do, which is more like a review, right? And that is it. However, what we are heading towards is where we want to do the more like the entire workflow. So imagine once you have done your bookkeeping, like once you've done your data entry, this is where we are entering, right? So what's going to happen here is that there are different modules that we are first of all coming up with, right? So one module is to do module. So a lot of our customers also ask, like they want to manage their routine tasks. So I'm also gonna give you guys some idea as to what we are coming up with, right? So there is gonna be a one module that's gonna, just a second. So as you can see, there is gonna be a left panel that you can see here, which is more like a modules, different modules. So speed mode, which is what you were saying, is gonna be one of the module that we will have. Then gonna be a to-do module. Again, these are gonna be optional modules. So if you feel comfortable with how you're doing it right now, it will be completely up to you whether you want to use it or not. But this is gonna be available to you guys, right? Where you can take care of all your tasks, assign to your team members, track time, put the estimate, right? So like basically the routine bookkeeping task you can easily manage. In fact, any sort of onboarding related task you can easily do that. Okay. Then there is going to be a close module. This is pretty important module that we are going to introduce. So let me just talk about that now. Okay. So we understand that when we do closing, there are some specific review points that you guys must be following, some sort of checklist that you might have in place. And at the same time, depending upon the size of your practice, you might have some people doing the preparation kind of work, some people having the reviewer kind of work, right? So we are going to have a kind of module where you can actually, let me just show you 1 second really quick. So where you can actually create your own checklist, okay, and then you can also assign the preparer and reviewer, right? So as you can see on my screen, right? Imagine when we are looking at balance sheet, and let's pick cash and bank account. There are certain things that we want to make sure that it's taken care, right? So let's say the number one is that, hey, make sure that you review and reconcile entries and make sure there are no transfer entries remaining uncleared, or there are no such ACH payments or debit card entries or long overdue checks, right? Those things were not there before, but now you can actually customize it as per your need. So like whatever, and there will be certain default templates that we will give, but you guys will have an option to create your own checklist. Okay. And imagine review and reconcile entries. You don't have to go anywhere to open that. When you click here, because we already have that unreconciled entries in speed mode, it will immediately open here. You don't have to go anywhere to access that, right? So imagine if I'm one of your staff, it's pretty handy for me. I can quickly open the unreconciled entries, and I also know what are the things I need to check. I don't have to refer to any Word document, or I don't have to rely on my memory as such, right? It's all there. If at all I want to leave some review note, I can do that here as well, right? So there is an option where I can do a review note here. I can do that, right? There are many columns here, but again, it's gonna be optional. If at all you want to track some like assign some estimate, and if you want to track time, you will be able to do that. If there are two people, one is actually preparing it and one is actually reviewing it, you will have an ability to do that as well, right? So and both have their own due dates, especially with the bigger clients. If that is a situation, you also have an ability to assign the preparer and reviewer separately. All right, so that's that. During this activity, if at all you have a question either for your client or for your staff, you will be able to do that from here. Okay, so there are two icons here. If at all you want to ask something to your client, you can immediately ask your client from here. It will be then published to the client portal. If you have a question for your team members, you can also tag them and ask those information. The best part about this is that imagine like it brings all of those things together, right? What I mean by that is like you don't have to separately write an email to your client. You don't have to ask your team member or manager on Slack or Teams, right? Because then you lose track of it. It just stays here. You don't have to separately store any working files because you can quickly attach it here, right? So you can also manage any working papers. If at all you are preparing it, you can link it here as well. So for example, this tells me that, hey, you got bank account balance as per books as here, which is actually coming from QuickBooks. And then if at all you have some sort of working papers, you can also attach it here. And then there's a difference here, right? So all of those working papers also stays here. And so this is more like a closed mode where actual work happens, but then it all carry forward to profit and loss and balance it also. So imagine if as a reviewer, if I'm looking at it, I'm not gonna look at every single of such task. All I'm gonna do, I'm gonna jump on directly the balance sheet and I can see all the comments, all the working papers right next to the GL account, right? So that way it's pretty handy. If I wanted to see what this balance is consist of, I can quickly open the working papers. If there is some question going on with the client, I can quickly find it from there. If there is some internal communication happening, I can quickly find it from there. So that way, all of those activities, we are bringing them into to the one place, right? So there are going to be much more features to that to this module, but I'm just gonna kind of giving you guys a quick glimpse as to what is coming up. Okay, so that's that. Questions is gonna have a new look, which is more like a accountant part. So this is what I am referring client questions. Right now, this is how it is, but it's gonna have a new look and new features as well. Okay, so that way we are revamping that and we will be adding more functionality to the client portal as well as on accountant side as well. There's going to be internal comments, which is also kind of been requested by many customers. Like if they want to communicate something with their team, they'll be able to tag them, they'll get notification and things like that. So that's internal comments will also be there. There's going to be a files module as well, but we'll be having that module after this release. So as you can see, there's an icon for files as well, where you can also like in the entire system, if at all you have attached any files, you can find all your documents at one place. So there's going to be a module for that as well. Speed mode will also be revamped. I'll kind of show you real quick what exactly it is. We also going to make it the experience quite easy. Just a second, real quick. So what we are introducing is more like a block system. Block as in, I'll give you an example. So see, this is the existing system right now, right? And I can see there are two transactions for Amazon in here, right? Right now, I'll have to select those 2 or 5 or 7 transactions because right, it's just two of them together. It's pretty easy for me to select them. But imagine if there was Amazon first transactions and fifth transactions and 10 transactions, I'll have to select like this. I want to select this one and this one and that one. So I have to kind of find those vendors, select those transactions. Now what's going to happen is that we are introducing a block system where we are actually going to create some blocks and it will be pretty handy for you to fix it. So I can see this is the vendor. This is how all these transactions recorded to, right? I don't need to select just a second. So with the block, you will not have to as such select individual transaction, right? So if I go back to uncategorized entries again, all these transactions, if I know that, hey, all these transactions are office expenses, I'm just gonna come here, put it to office expenses or whatever. Let's say dues and subscription, if at all I can find it, and then save it. That's it, right? So it's super handy that way. You don't have to literally, it's like the whole bulk will be resolved then, right? Because we grouped it by vendor, by account. So that way it's gonna be super handy. So there will be also quite a good improvement also in the speed mode as well. Okay, I'm gonna leave some of the stuff as a surprise for the release. So I don't want to cover everything right now, but just wanted to give you guys a glimpse. So what is coming up? Let me just quickly see the chat so that I can address. Okay, and the special search is to make sure subcontractor transaction have customer. Yeah, so there is also a thing that you can do. Special search, yeah, I think Jim, you mentioned that. Recurrence, yes, it will have a recurrence capability. Yes, that's for sure. Recurrence also, like custom field that you can also assign it. We are actually using ClickUp, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of, I mean, I personally love ClickUp, right? It's just that it's not specifically meant to be designed for accountants, right? So we have been inspired by ClickUp, and I kind of personally feel that we could actually use some of its help as well to incorporate here. Will there be client app in the future? Yes, there will be client app for future. In fact, we already started planning for that. Like we wanted to have a client app where we can you can also do some sort of chat real quick, right? So that's something. Q2 is something that we are aiming for. Where we will be actually kind of spending some time to work on that as well. By the way, I didn't cover this one, but you can also do custom branding where your client does not need to know that it's Xenett. You can have your own URL like, hey, portal.abcbookkeeping.com, right? They will not really know. And even whenever the email is sent to your client, you can also customize your from email address saying that, hey, questions at abcbookkeeping.com, right? So things like this, you can also do that. So on the practice level, you can change your custom branding as well. And if at all you would need any help with that, we'll be more than happy to even address that as well. So I think that's it, I guess, unless you guys have any open question. I'm quickly going to the chat. Just want to make sure if at all there are any questions remain unanswered. We covered everything, but if at all, guys, you need any help, as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to us on the chat or set up a quick call. We'll be more than happy to answer that. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for our launch. We kind of working pretty hard. That's also one of the things we want to get this out as soon as possible. So yeah, I really hope you guys join us on our launch webinar, which is happening on 21st March. You guys would have received an email to register for it, so do register it. We'll make sure it's worth your time, right? So all right, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for taking time and attending this webinar. I really hope you guys find it helpful, and yeah, a lot more exciting stuff on the way. Thank you and take care. Bye bye.